Hey everyone. Alrighty, so we are winding down the semester and you are at your last essay. And I have a feeling some of you might be kind of panicking or struggling, like, oh my gosh, I don't know what she wants us to do. And so tonight I'm going to load up some videos for you to wrap up the semester and kind of put you at ease. I want you to have fun with this last essay. It's not the last assignment, but it's the last essay. And so tonight I will be walking you through all of it and hopefully answering all of your questions. I will be presenting several short videos. Hopefully, they're all about 10 to 15 minutes long so you can watch them at your own pace. I also did extend the due date for this last essay until December 9th. Um, that way it gives you a little bit more time to work through it since I'm just now getting these videos to you. And then your final project you'll just work on the between then and the week of final exams. But it should be relatively, I say relatively easy because you're working with something that you've already created. And so you're not starting from scratch. Alrighty, so here we go. I just want us to think first about rhetoric. Um, because that's what's really important when we think about this analysis. Um, Sometimes I have my students work through a whole text analysis where we really analyze what the person is saying, what the writer is saying. But this time I want you to work through a media analysis or an advertisement analysis or a visual analysis, kind of stretch our thinking into a 21st century composition and rather than just a textual composition. And so I just want to let us think first about ethos, pathos, and logos. This might be a little rusty. I know we touched on it at the beginning of the semester. So I want you to think again. Ethos, pathos, and logos, if we're really thinking about it, logos is that appeal to logic or reason. So when a writer, a speaker, an advertiser is wanting you to use logic or reason, they're going to give you a lot of facts. They're going to give you statistics. They're going to give you percentages. This does not mean everything is reliable. This does not mean everything is trustworthy. What they're wanting you to do is think logically so that hopefully you'll learn to agree with them. Sometimes they want us to believe in their product or believe in their word, believe in their ethics, their character, their value system. So when someone is using ethos, they're wanting to connect with our moral values, our character, and connect that with that of the writer or the speaker or the politician. And we'll get more into ethos in just a minute. Pathos, then, is when a writer or a speaker or an advertiser is appealing to our emotions, when they're wanting us to respond emotionally. Now, it's really important that you understand that an advertiser can use ethos, pathos, and logos all at once, that these things are not entirely separate. What is important is that you always ask yourself, what are they doing and why are they doing it? So, if they're showing you a fact or statistic, it's not automatically logos. They're not automatically wanting you to think logically. They could be showing you a fact or statistic because they're trying to get you to think ethically. Sometimes, if they're thinking ethically, they might get you to think ethically in order to appeal to an emotion. So we always have to ask ourselves what exactly it is that they are wanting us to think of. So let's move quickly on now to what I call the art of persuasion. And we're going to think about logical fallacies. Those logical fallacies then are simply errors or mistakes in their logic and their reasoning. Sometimes when they're doing this, they are using what we call inflated rhetoric. So if someone is telling you, no one can ever be this great, or um, everyone has to buy this product, or you just have to believe in our product, that's inflated rhetoric. Here is an example from sometime in history. Shame on me for not citing it. But 3 millions of people armed in the holy cause of liberty in a country as that which we possess. This is Patrick Henry. Sorry. It's a speech to the Second Continental Congress. 3 millions of people armed in the holy cause of liberty in such a country as that which we possess are invincible by any force which our enemy can send against us. Now, I doubt it was really 3 million people, and they weren't armed in the holy cause of liberty, and they were not completely invincible. So Patrick Henry here is using this inflated rhetoric that it makes it sound so much more dramatic than it is. He's not wanting them to think logically. He's not wanting them to think ethically. He's wanting to appeal to their emotion of panic or fear. When they're using inflated rhetoric, they are exaggerating. So, this inflated rhetoric, be careful of it in your advertisements, in politicians, in anything that you're reading or listening to, especially news and the media. They definitely use that inflated rhetoric to get us to respond a certain way. So, rap music sounds bad. Rap music isn't really music. Well, that's exaggerating if they say rap music is destroying the melodic sensibilities of an entire generation, killing our notions of pleasing harmonies, leaving us with millions of young people who have no idea what good music truly is. Try telling that to Snoop Dogg or Tupac, right? Because their music really was music and it was poetry, but it certainly didn't kill the notions of pleasing harmonies. So notice how much more exaggerated the second one is than the first one. We hear rhetorical questions all the time, and this rhetorical question is a question that's asked but doesn't really need an answer, and they're asking it in order to persuade you. So most often they're asking it to either tap into your logic or to your credibility, to your sense of values or belief systems. Again, this one is Patrick Henry from his speech, the Second Continental Congress. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Well, ignoring the fact that he probably owned slaves, but that was much more dramatic for him to have been enslaved, correct? By the horrible redcoats. And so here he is giving that rhetorical question because, again, he wants them to respond ethically. They know chains and slavery are wrong, and they're not fighting against chains and slavery. They're fighting against the redcoats and the British king, but they're wanting them to respond ethically and emotionally at the same time. So notice how that one connects to both. We often also see the rule of three, and you see this in photographs and images. You see this in artwork. That rule of three is really, really powerful. Maybe it's that odd numbered floral arrangement. And so instead of having just two roses, they have three roses, or maybe it's two roses with three begonias or whatever. So it's that odd number that creates something and it's visually appealing. Same thing when that rule of three is in text, it makes it more auditorially appealing. And so we tend to clutch onto it because it's short, it's simple, it's catchy, and for some reason our brains connect to it a little bit better. So this rule of three. Here again is Thomas Jefferson, not Patrick Henry this time, but Thomas Jefferson, one of our founding fathers. We hold these truths to be self evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And notice that one was three sets of three. Two sets of three. So we hold these truths to be self evident. Which truth? All men are created equal. That's one. That they are endowed by their Creator with unalienable rights. That's two. And that among these are, and that's the third one, and inside that third one, he has life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So he has two sets of threes. And then here again, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honors. So the rule of three. John F. Kennedy, in his inaugural address, and then also in his Race to Space speech, used the rule of three. Martin Luther King, in many of his speeches and writings, used the rule of three. Mahatma Gandhi did as well. So this is not something that's just for American presidents. This is something that's very powerful. And Plato and Aristotle actually spoke on the power of that rule of three. So Abraham Lincoln, government of the people, by the people, for the people. General Douglas MacArthur, duty, honor, and country. And then, of course, Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland. The rule is jam tomorrow, jam yesterday, but never jam today. One of the other things that we might hear when we're looking at rhetoric is this repetition. And the reason I'm pointing these things out is so that as you're working through your advertisements and your media critique, maybe you'll spot these strategies and these rhetorical techniques. Repetition happens quite a bit. It can be a repetition in an image, it can be a repetition in a symbol, it can be a repetition in phrasing. And so look carefully for words or phrases or images that are repeated and recycled. So here's Patrick Henry when he says, if we mean not basely to abandon the noble struggle in which we have been so long engaged, we must fight. I repeat, sir, we must fight. And then in the same speech, he says, the war is inevitable. Let it come. I repeat it, sir. Let it come. And then there's one more that we often see in text, and it's a parallel structure when that sentence structure is the same at the beginning as the end, or when we see several sentences in a row that have a similar grammatical structure. For example, John F. Kennedy, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And then, in the words of a famous song, whenever you need me, wherever you need me, I will be there for you. And Martin Luther King was a pro at using parallel structure, especially in his "I Have a Dream" speech. All right, moving on really quickly, I want to point out some other logical fallacies, and these are not a completely extensive list. You can certainly look up logical fallacies and come up with a more extensive list, but this one changed my mind. That's what I called it. Um, if we talk about a logical fallacy, again, it's that error in logic that, if you're looking closely, actually undermines the logic of your argument. But advertisers use it, politicians use it, because most often the general audience isn't thinking logically. They're acting emotionally, and so they're not paying attention. So these are either illegitimate arguments or making irrelevant points. And usually it's to get our minds focused on something else and get away from the actual argument that's being made. So, for example, if I look at this image, this is from an archaic advertisement. We certainly wouldn't want to see doctors smoking cigarettes. But here's this: more doctors smoke camels than any other cigarette. So it makes us think that. But it's not saying out of how many doctors surveyed, how many doctors actually still smoke cigarettes. And this is according to repeated nationwide surveys. But it doesn't tell us how many doctors they surveyed. And it doesn't compare other brands or anything else that the doctors might use instead. We have the first logical fallacy that's called begging the question. It's also known as circular reasoning. And it's when that argument doesn't actually ever get to the point. So mom says, Jill, you have to make your bed every day. I'm tired of telling you. Mom, why do I have to make my bed? Because I said so. Mom, if I'm just going to crawl back in it at night after I've done my homework and after I've done my chores, what's the point? I don't see the point. Jill, make the bed. But mom, is there a reason the bed needs to be made? Nope. Mom's never going to get to the point other than mom just wants the bed made. But she's not actually answering Jill's question. In real life, kids do that all the time with their parents, and parents do that all the time with their children. But then we see it in political campaigns as well. So on the far right of the screen, illegal immigration is illegal. Now, this is actually from a political campaign years ago, not recent. Notice how it doesn't say why it's illegal. It doesn't say any harms or threats that immigration might bring or what makes it illegal. Notice it's just simply saying it's illegal. Interesting. If we think about another type of logical fallacy, it's the transfer appeal. When an advertiser tries to get us to think about one thing um, and connect that idea with something that's completely unrelated. So I'm going to post this online. I've hesitated doing so because it's not completely ADA compliant because of the images. But I'm going to go ahead and post it for you so that you can see the videos, the Dodge Challenger video and the Nike Snow Day, and really ask yourself, like, what would make those transfer appeals? But here is the transfer appeal in print ads. And so if I'm looking at print ads, notice the transfer appeal in Wheaties. And so here is this athlete, and he's a pro, and he's throwing a football. And what are we led to believe? That he eats his Wheaties. So if we eat Wheaties with whole grain, we're going to be these great athletes, right? Here's another one. And man, if you're in pain, just be like Shaq and use Icy Hot because it works for him, right? Here's another picture. Oh my goodness, another pro athlete. If he uses this Icy Hot heat therapy, it must be really great. Here's another one. Choose happiness. And we could be swinging from the trees and just happy as a clam if we drink Coca Cola. Now, we all know that one thing doesn't necessarily lead to the other, but those advertisers certainly want us to think so. And so they're trying to get us to connect those happy feelings or those prideful feelings or those feelings of glee with whatever product that is. Transfer works because we transfer that happy feeling from a picture or a product to something else. Most of us, when we think about Christmas time, we get really happy, right? And so this feeling that we connect to Christmas time and with Santa Claus, especially from young children, makes us really happy. So now that we see Santa Claus opening a Coca Cola, we're supposed to feel happy. And we're supposed to connect Coca Cola with that same feeling of nostalgia that we feel on Christmas morning. A testimonial is also a type of transfer, and this is when a product has been endorsed by celebrities. This is a very old video. Watch it at your own risk from Michael Jordan drinking Gatorade. But here are some that are more recent. For example, Coca Cola, Taylor Swift. Um, entertain in style with Taylor Swift. Star extraordinaire, and she drinks what? Diet Coke. Oh, but wait, she is drinking Diet Coke out of champagne glasses. And so that's in style, right? Interesting. Um, Stella grows revenue by 10 million pounds while using HubSpot. Interesting. So I don't know who he is, but apparently he's using HubSpot and he's just earning money while he's using that product. And it makes me want to use that product too. If I knew what it was, maybe. And so here we go. Another star, and what does it say she is? She's a clinical patient. A good night's sleep is no longer a dream for me. So she uses their product and now she sleeps like a baby. And so all of these testimonials, typically by celebrities, some of those we didn't quite know. Maybe you know them and I don't. But they want us to think that because they use their product and because they have success with it, it should be good enough for us as well. Sometimes we have to keep in mind what happens when a celebrity's image changes, such as Tiger Woods with Fuse or Nike Golf, or Justin Bieber with Adidas. And so when that celebrity falls from grace, do they keep using that product or does that product keep endorsing them? And so it can go both ways as well. Now, a bandwagon appeal, that is that logical fallacy that makes you want to use the product because everyone else is doing it and you don't want to be left out. This is commonly used in advertisements, also used in political campaigns, and it's used in propaganda. So here, if we look at war campaigns, we can do it. And so this was that bandwagon appeal. Women, roll up your sleeves. We can do it. The men are at war, and we can take care of the job while they're away. The drink everybody knows. Man, Coca-Cola uses transfer. Coca-Cola uses bandwagon. If it's the drink that everybody knows, why don't you give it a try? And look here at this bandwagon. Step into your place. And so here's all these men coming from the business world and coming from the law, the courts of law, and they're coming from the mines and the workers' fields, and so they're stepping into their place in the army. Here we goes another one from World War II. Come on, gang, we're building arms for victory, and let's keep using it, or let's keep doing it. So that bandwagon appeal is when everyone else is doing it. So I can't believe you haven't started it either. I can't believe you haven't tried this product. I can't believe you haven't joined up and enlisted yet. Right? In modern day media, think about this. Thank you for making Star Trek Into Darkness the number one movie in America. Divergent, the number one movie in the nation. Think Like a Man is number one. So anytime you see something is number one, or it's on the top 10 list, or it's the best selling book, is it really? Because can all those books and all those movies be number one? Maybe they're the number one for the moment. Maybe the number one for the weekend. But then what are they not telling you? What are the box office sales? How long did it last in the movie theater? Did it immediately go to live stream or DVD? What are they not telling us? Bandwagon works because it makes you think that everyone else is around you doing it and that you should too. And so, just like we saw with the Coca Cola, with Taylor Swift, that bandwagon appeal makes you think you're going to be left out. So, here's a real sign from McDonald's that you would drive by and see billions and billions served. And while this might be logical, and you might think it's logical, it taps into the emotion that we all want to not be left out. So if it's good enough for billions and billions, it's good enough for me. Forget that they cause obesity or that the food's probably not even real food, that is processed. And then here are some more examples of real life cases. Of course, this was from the Obama. Oh gosh, I can't even think. When was his first campaign? I want to say 2008. I'm not even sure if that I remember, but this is from when he initially ran for president for his first term. And they were questioning his birth certificate. Notice how quickly that bandwagon appeal picked up speed, where it made it on billboards. First, it became, it was just handwritten, and then it made it to billboards and political campaigns. Card stacking is when you get one sided partial information. So these are only half truths or lies by omission, right? Sometimes when you're flipping through and you see a movie review or a book review, perhaps the finest novelist of our time. But again, it's only half the truth. It's only partially true. Perhaps the finest novelist of our time, but the book actually stinks, right? Or maybe the movie was number one in box office sales, but people wouldn't go pay to see it again, right? Maybe it only lasted for a week in the movie theaters and then they realized it was a bomb. Who knows? Card stacking works because it makes you question, and they want you to think logically, but we question what are they not telling us. So in the image on the left, we have Ryan D, who lost 90 pounds. Within the first month, I lost, I think it says 20, 30. I can't read that. And after that, it was up to 4 pounds a week. Wow. Okay. That's not bad. But they're not telling us what else he did other than use their product. Did he have lap band surgery? Did he have liposuction? Did he spend hours at the gym? Did he eat a rigorous diet? It doesn't tell us everything else he did to achieve those results. If you notice too, his hair is a little bit more styled. He lost the facial hair. And notice one image he's showing the front view with the shirt off, and the other one is a side view with the shirt on. I wonder why. And if we look at the second image, the image on the right, then we have this one guy eating this healthy salad. And he says, today I took steps to balance my type 2 diabetes. Today I chose salad and talked to my doctor. And the other guys are loading up with that big, fat, juicy burger. And they're drinking soda while the guy in the middle is drinking water. Now, it doesn't also tell us what else is going on. Did he eat something else after the salad? Is he only eating the salad all day? Are there other things that are going on with that diabetes, and why is it showing the other guys with those burgers? So we have to be careful with that card stacking of what is that partial information they're telling us. What are they leaving out? This is just as dangerous when we get to a hasty generalization. That hasty generalization is when you get to that quick decision, that snap decision without enough information. We've often done this. We've been guilty of it. If we hear one or two people complain about a Toyota, maybe our parents complain about, I say Toyota, sorry, because my family makes fun of Toyotas, even though they've never driven one, right? Hasty generalization. And so maybe someone complains about one car brand, one car product, and they've never driven it themselves, or they've never really been inside of one. And they say, well, because my mom hated it or my dad hated it, it must be really bad, right? Hasty generalization. We have to be careful that we're asking what kind of sampling we're using. Are we relying on the opinions or experiences of just a few, or are we actually fact checking it, right? With that hasty generalization, we might have someone who says, "Oh, well, my dad smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day since age 14. He lived till he was 70. Therefore, smoking can't be really bad for you." But that's just one person, and maybe he did everything else correct. And maybe if he hadn't smoked 4 packs of cigarettes, he would have lived till he was 90. You never know. But in advertisements, we see it this way: 4 out of 5 dentists recommend Happy Glossy Smiley toothpaste brand. But we don't know how many dentists were actually surveyed. We don't know compared to what other brands. We also don't know what are the other issues with Happy Glossy Smiley toothpaste brand. Did it help whiten, but it didn't cure cavities? Or did it not help remove the plaque? Or what else was going on that they are not telling us to get to that hasty generalization? Similar to a hasty generalization is that glittering generality. When we're looking at that loaded language, there's no evidence to actually back it up. There's no evidence to support it, but they're using positive words because they want to make us feel happy or proud, and they're bringing about that positive emotion. So we might hear words like Southern hospitality, American pride, family values. These things are glittering generality. So the top left image, the Gatorade bottle is crossing the finish line. The water bottles just aren't making it. They're collapsing right when they get to the end. And the caption says, Gatorade always wins. That glittering generality. So we want that winning because, well, who likes to lose? I don't know, one person who likes to lose. So Gatorade always wins. So if you want to win, drink Gatorade. At the bottom, on the left, you have things go better with Coke, drink Coca Cola. And the word there that is implied is things always go better with Coke. And so we like that always, and we like better. So, of course, we think Coke. Now, if you look at Obama's campaign image, notice that red, white, and blue. Notice he's got the insignia of the American flag, and there's just one word: hope. And so he's not promising anything. It's that glittering generality that he brings back hope, but he doesn't tell you how or why or when or through what means. Name calling is also known as ad hominem, and these are negative labels designed to isolate, no information to back it up or support it. They're providing labels without supporting evidence. You see name calling in advertisements, you see name calling in propaganda, you see name calling in political campaigns. Specifically in the 2008 election, I'll let you go back and watch that on your own. But in the meantime, here's name calling and advertisements. And so we can look at the Burger King Silly Whopper. That's a Big Mac box. So that's name calling. Um, Man, Whopper, didn't you know that Big Mac box? Well, you can't fit in that. You're too big. Seems more like a medium Mac, right? So it's trying to show you comparative size. McDonald's, big and tasty versus the actual burger. Um, this is an opposite of what we just saw. So it says snob, but that's definitely from his political opponent. Let me look. Here's name calling. Be patriotic. Sign your country's pledge to save the food. Interesting. Um, It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. And so, of course, they show you the dollar signs, some name calling. You can save money and it tastes just as good as delivery. And here's again in a political campaign David Larson, hypocrite. Yes, it can get worse. Notice this is Mitt Romney. Whoops, hello. I do not want that. Okay, well, here we go. It's Mitt Romney, and notice it's the same coloring as that one Obama campaign. So you'll notice that politicians often use the same technique as others in their advertisements. Um, Here we go. Moving on, here's an actual advertisement with Progresso and Campbell's. And then notice with this advertisement, the font matches the color and the font matches um, the labeling and the brand. So pay attention to those things too. But this one, how do you like your chicken noodle, with MSG or without? And notice that the Campbell's can tends to stand a little bit taller, and that font matches, and so they're drawing your eye like this is the product you want, and you don't want the MSG. Um, Either or is also another one. America, love it or leave it. Do you want to go to college or flip burgers the rest of your life? And of course, those aren't the only two options. You can love America and stay there and fight to change it, or you can hate America and stay there to fight to change it. You can actually flip burgers while you're working through college or while you're working on a trade school certificate. Um, Not the only options there are. Here's George W. Bush shortly after 9/11. Over time, it's going to be important for nations to know they will be held accountable. You're either with us or against us, as if those are the only two options other countries had to face. In this one from Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. Had you rather Caesar were living and we die all slaves? Silly Brutus. I'm going to be careful of slippery slope. So that belief that one thing is going to start that downward spiral. That if we just let one thing slide. I don't know if you've ever seen the children's book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, then he's going to want a glass of milk. And if you give him a glass of milk, he's going to want a napkin to wipe his face. And if you give him that, then he's going to want this. And if you give a big a party or a moose a muffin. And so those children's books practice that art of slippery slope. And anyone who knows 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds, or even taught, like 5 or 6-year-olds, man, they're the kings and queens of slippery slope, because sometimes if you give them an inch, they're going to take the mile. And so they can practice that slippery slope before they even know what it's called. Two advertisements you can watch at your own leisure: Taco Bell and cable TV slippery slope. Here's an actual one, and this is actually recent within this century. So in 2020, well, not 2020, but in the 2000s, and this is put out by the NRA and the Republican right wing. This is all in favor of gun control. Raise your right hand, because of course the right wing, the Republicans argue that that's what the Democrats are trying to do, is take away the guns. But once we take away the guns, then we're going to be stuck with Hitler, and so they're making that slippery slope. That's all it's going to take, is by taking away guns. A false cause is when you have two events that occur and you falsely believe that one causes another. Every severe recession follows a Republican presidency. Therefore, Republicans are always the cause of recessions. No, that's a false cause, because not always does one thing necessarily connect to that other. Here's one of my favorite false causes from the cartoon Dilbert. Someday I want to get married because studies show that married people are happier. Dilbert quickly pauses and says, a smarter interpretation is that no one wants to marry an unhappy person. So she had this connection to a false cause that she's going to be happy just by getting married. Here's another: Family Circus. Oh, I love that little Tommy. I wish they didn't turn on that seatbelt sign so much. Every time they do, it gets bumpy. False cause. And then lastly, we have red herring. Now, we hear red herring, and I need you to think about this carefully, because The basic idea is to win the argument by leading the attention away from the actual problem. We had this happen quite a bit. It happens all the time in politics, and it happens usually when something major is going on. So, at the time that Hillary Clinton and the Benghazi email issue was going on, we also had Ebola. Ebola, that disease that came across the Atlantic continent. And all of a sudden, you stopped hearing about Benghazi and you started hearing about this. I'm not saying that wasn't a problem, but it could have been logically a red herring. Likewise, when COVID started rising and people were saying we need the vaccine, hurry up with the vaccine, there were some red herrings that popped up. So always pay attention to what dies down in politics and what comes up in politics and in the news. Because that herring is when that irrelevant topic is brought up to simply divert attention from the original issue. Alrighty, that is it for this video. I will post another one and hopefully it'll be a little bit shorter. See you soon.